Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Good morning and a very warm welcome to everyone. I am Manu Kashyapa from Advaita Academy. Let us begin with a small prayer. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram. I welcome you all to this special panel discussion on the much acclaimed movie Adi Shankaracharya as part of the Global Festival of Oneness 2021. Adi Shankaracharya is a 1983 Indian film in Sanskrit language directed by Shri G.V. Iyer. The film depicts the life and times of Adi Shankaracharya. It was the first film in India to be made in Sanskrit, and at the 31st National Film Awards, it won 4 awards including Best Film, Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography and Best Audiography. Today we have special panelists to discuss about the movie and gain some insights. Today we have Shri Nagaraj Paturi ji, Shri Danji Thotapalli ji, Shri Ujjwal Rajput ji on our panelists. I would like to introduce our panelists before we move on. Shri Nagaraj Paturi ji is a senior professor with 3 decades of university teaching, research experience, including fieldwork-based culture research. Presently, he is director, Indic Academy, formerly senior professor of cultural studies at Flame School of Communication and Flame School of Liberal Education. One of his core areas of research and teaching has been Vedic aesthetics and Vedic narrative studies and its application to contemporary fields like film studies, communication design, etc. He has been providing consultancy to various filmmakers and communication designers for the past several decades. I welcome you, Nagaraj ji. The next panelist is Shri Danji Thotapalli. Shri Danji Thotapalli is Chief Curator at Indica Pictures. He is a senior global technology sourcing professional with a passion for cinema. Having spent the last 10 years at major Hollywood studios, previously at NBC Universal and currently at Sony Pictures, Danji understands the power of film and the extent of its reach. Danji has also been associated with the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles for about 12 years and comes with a deep insights into all facets of running a film festival such as community outreach, sponsorship or funding, event management, programming, and media relations. Danji is passionate about pre-Buddhist Andhra history and enjoys immersive experiences that blend modernity with tradition. I welcome you, Danji. Our next panelist is Shri Ujjwal Rajput ji. Shri Ujjwal Rajput is from Datia, Madhya Pradesh. He is an alumnus of IISc with a post-graduation in mathematics. He is currently working as a scientist in Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Delhi. His first introduction to filmmaking was in a humanities course at the university, where he was taught some technical skills like editing. At the end of the course, he produced short films, and in one of them, he incorporated 3D animation and used Samskrita for all on-screen written elements. He also contributed as one of the Samskrita script editors for the animated film Punyakoti, which has been released on Netflix. I welcome you all once again. Thank you for joining us today. And before we start the discussion, let us watch the trailer of the movie Adi Shankaracharya.
शुद्धे हृदये सर्वं शुद्धम् अथम मलिनम मनः किम फलम यदि शुद्धा वाणी
सत्यकामो जाबालो
जबलां मातरमामन्त्रयां चक्रे ब्रह्मैवागमिदं जगच्छ सकलं चिन्मात्रविस्तारितम् पतितं तोयं सागरं प्रति गच्छति आकाशात् पतितं तोयं सागरं प्रति गच्छति.
Amazing movie, I should say.
I request the panelists to start the discussion. Yeah.
I welcome both my co-panelists, Danji Thotapalli ji and Ujjwal Rajput ji. This is a very good panel because we have on both sides of me Ujjwal Rajput ji, an expert in Sanskrit and particularly spoken Sanskrit. And I particularly like the way he is trying to bring back the swara in contemporary spoken Sanskrit itself, which is actually, people imagine that swara intonation was there only for Veda swara, Veda mantrocharana, but he is bringing it back. And he is going to focus on the Sanskrit in the film, Adi Shankaracharya, the language, the modulation, the dialogues, and certain portions of the film Adi Shankaracharya. And exactly to complement it, we have an expert from the film making area, a long experience in the topmost film studios, Hollywood studios, and all his experience in the film making, background of it, the business of it, everything. And he has studied Adi Shankaracharya movie from these background point of view, from the back screen technology and also on the screen technology and filmmaking technique aspects. And I'm going to be focusing on my area called the aesthetics of the movie from our Vedic Shastra point of view, and also from the contemporary filmmaking point of view, how we can put them together, and how our Vedic Shastras have narrative analysis, how that narrative analysis can be applied to this movie, Adi Shankaracharya. So I think this is a good combination. And let me start, Danji Thotapalli ji, and how do you actually remember Acharya days? It was a sensation of sorts because it was the first Sanskrit movie, a full movie in Sanskrit. And how was it received, and what was the other mainstream filmmaking in India?
Yeah, thanks, Nagaraj Garu. So thank everybody. In 1983, I didn't have this much gray hair, you know. So when the movie released, and it was such a special film that I did not even know about the movie when it released in 1983. I heard about it in the news, I read about it in the newspapers, but did not get a chance to watch it because it did not have a wide theatrical release like most commercial films have. So I missed watching it when it was released in the theater. but I got to watch it a couple of years later in a film club, which had screened the film. And thanks to Indian Academy, Advaita Academy, I got to see it again just a few days ago, just to get back and to try to go back and watch. I mean, remember everything that I had recollected from watching it years ago. So I think from a filmmaking point of view, right, purely from a filmmaking point of view, I think it's one of the few honest films that were ever made in the Indian film industry. And the reason I say that is because the film stays true to many aspects of the story of Adi Shankara. First of all, it's a Sanskrit language film, which is a truth that one needs to remember. When we're making a film about Adi Shankara, it has to be, I mean, being in Sanskrit, it lends so much authenticity to it. The second is the ecosystem and the native environment that the film recreates, right from, the Nambudri, the dress, the costumes, and the environment, and the house in which Adi Shankara is there, the boy, his mother, his grandfather, and how that whole initial set of scenes are very, very powerful. Very powerful. They establish the ecosystem very well, and they transport the audience into that ecosystem. And the third thing, of course, is that it has some luminaries behind it. G.B. Iyer himself was such a powerful filmmaker, but besides him, Balamurali Krishna and B.V. Karant was, apparently he was the background music. He scored the background music, and I think his name is Nokala Chinna Satyanarayana. He's a famous, yes. So it had a beautiful, set of people behind it. And so I think that is what I remember from that film, watching it that many years ago. So yeah, I'll share more thoughts as we go along and pass it back on to Nagaraj garu. I think Nagaraj garu seems to have been having some technical issues.
Nagaraj, we can't hear you.
Please go ahead. Ujjwalji, are you there? Ujjwalji, can you go to the Sanskrit language part of it? And
yes, sir. So actually, this film was the Sanskrit dialogue was written by Shri Nagaraj Paturi, who translated dialect into Sanskrit, and that he was a very erudite scholar, and the dialogue in this movie is uses very idiomatic Sanskrit, and which is very unlike the later movies which focus more on simple Sanskrit, and the poetic merit of the dialogues is also very great, which I have seen. So I can also give a few examples from, for example, the slash he has used in the movie in the beginning of the story when Shankara meets elder Nambudri who tells about the Vedic Dharma, which he says that Tat Sarvam Idanim Shithilayate, and then later when he meets Govinda Bhagavat Pada, he says a similar thing about the Granthas. So when he shows him the Vedic scripts and then says about them that Tathapi Shithilayate. So that way the poetic merit of can be seen in this movie. And also the Sanskrit that has been used in this movie is to give a realistic sense for example, when the Brahmins use the Sanskrit, the other people of the Kerala use Malayalam, and in North India, when he goes to Banaras, then we can also hear the local language of Banaras being spoken. So this is this thing we can see that they have used Sanskrit as a in a historical way and not actually a contemporary way. So that's one thing. And I will also want to say that the language is not only just a very serious Sanskrit, but also it uses some sarcasm in some ways. For example, in one instance, when Shankara decides to be a sannyasi, he says to his mother that Amba aham sannyasi bhavami, and then she replies by saying that Shiram Pravati Mukhat Marjaya. So she says that milk is dripping from your mouth and clean it. So this points to that also that you are a child and you want to be a sannyasi. So this is a playful use of the Sanskrit language that we can see here, which is not very much abundant in the old scriptures, if we can say that. So this is new developments that we can see in the Sanskrit language in this movie. Okay, sir. So.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful points, Ujjwalji. The interesting point about this movie particularly is that Shankara's biography that is known to people comes from books like Shankara Vijaya or Shankara Digvijaya, which are hagiographies. And as usual, all these hagiographies are full of miracle stories, stories that don't seem to be plausible or feasible for a contemporary audience. And G.V. Iyer very interestingly removes most of them. For example, he removes the Parakaya Pravesha incident or miracle performances from a big number of incidents in the biography that are included in Shankara Digvijaya narratives, both by Madhava and Vidyaranya. And all these changes make the movie contemporary. The narration style also is a contemporary narration style, unlike the clear-cut beginning, clear-cut ending. Mangaladini Mangalanadhyani Mangalantani Chakavyani was the tradition. And for that, a very clear-cut beginning and a clear-cut ending was required. But the contemporary fiction style narration, which is an abrupt beginning and abrupt ending, and all such contemporary narration styles have been followed. In spite of all this, the movie sticks to the traditional rasa technique, and it's a very difficult rasa that has been taken up in the movie, Shanta rasa. Among rasas, Shanta rasa is one of the most difficult rasas that can be maintained by a filmmaker, because the most popular of the rasas are the action movie rasa, Veera rasa, and the romantic movie rasa, Shringara rasa. These are the most popular ones and most sold rasas. When you make a movie with Shanta rasa, which is actually a juicy, emotional, ecstatic experience of spirituality and detachment, particularly, and a pacific feeling. Shama is the sthayi bhava, the consistent emotion. Shama can be seen as pacificity, and you have nirveda is the other sthayi bhava, which is detachment. Both these filmmaker was able to successfully create through various musical elements. BGM was very good, suitable for evoking such emotions. and the way the narration is done in a very cool and calm way suits the Shantarasa creation throughout the movie. I'll come back to some other aspects of narration and narrative elements in the movie before Danji ji is ready with his points about filmmaking, technology, and technical aspects.
Nagaraj Garu, you have nailed it on its head, because it is such a powerful observation that G.V. Iyer, making a film about Adi Shankara, right? He chose to actually eliminate the miracles, aspect of Shankara's life that were documented in some of the hagiographies, as you mentioned. Which actually made the film a lot more, I think, a lot more realistic and more acceptable to the audience, so to speak. So that was a very great decision, I'm sure, that they took. And like you said, the beginning and the ending are very, very cinematic ending. The ending is very cinematic. In fact, when he hugs, embraces Mrityu and Prajna, and he just disappears, right? So I think I think G.V. Iyer, obviously, a great man. He knew what is the format that he needs to follow without compromising on the basic soul of the film. So that is a very, very solid observation that you made. I mean, my whole thing about the film is that there is so much nativity in it, and that is unfortunate. And nativity can be in two ways, right? Nativity can be nativity, in the sense really what it was, as against cinematic, cosmetic kind of a nativity, which is artificial. For example, a lot of films nowadays, Telugu films especially, if there's a Godavari regional film, I don't think those villages exist anymore today. If you want to go look for a village that is visible in Telugu films from the Godavari districts, I don't think that those villages exist. So it's kind of, little bit of cosmetic nativity, so to speak. So, but in this film, I mean, the Vedic recitation, the Nambudiri style of Vedic recitation, where that is very, very rhythmic, it's very powerful. The fact that he used that to set the background and to create the ecosystem of Shankara's childhood is amazing. I mean, very, very appealing decisions that he took as a director, filmmaker, to make the film very appealing. The other thing I wanted to talk about was that the film also uses cinematic vehicles to tell the story. For example, the whole Mandana Mishra's parrot, that scene, right? The playback between the parrot, what the parrot is doing and what is happening in the debate is so cinematic. That is the right way to actually project that in a film. So, I mean, where, there is, they keep moving back and forth. Extremely, well made and extremely good choice of how the scene should be played out, right? So, I mean, I just wanted to mention these two things. Of course, the scene where Hastamalaka, I think, is the name of the character, the boy who seems to be mad, but actually is, he's seeing things beyond what human beings see. And Shankara, his parents bring him over to Shankara, and Shankara, and he's mute until then, but then he opens up and says that, very powerful scenes, and I think a filmmaker's credibility lies there. The filmmaker's credibility lies in how powerful the scenes are and how they touch you in the heart. I think this movie has a lot of those scenes. And I think if somebody has missed watching it, it's available on YouTube. They should definitely go and watch the whole film. So back to you.
Yeah. Talking of nativity, that you brought in, really the Vedic citations and Veda mantras, it is full of local cultures, Kannada, Malayalam, talk Kannada words. The GD Iyer doesn't miss even that. He puts both these things very well together. When Shankara walks through the Narmada area, the Kaveri area, the Kannada folk songs are played. And in the Malayalam area, the Malayalam songs are played, and Kannada words are played in the background. And he doesn't make it just a Sanskrit, all Sanskrit film. But when he brings in the regional languages, he puts them in the background to bring that nativity that you're talking about. And he brings in the local folk art forms like the Kudiyattam of Kerala. And the Nachiketa episode is in the Kudiyattam form. And there he, again, as Ujjwalji was putting it, there are multiple layers of meaning. The symbolism movement of the France, the modern avant-garde symbolist movement, it has that multiform, they call it in symbolism. So each element used in the movie is a multiform. So for example, the costume of the Kudiyattam performer is hung to the wall, and the same performer is dead, and the whole symbolism of the body and the self inside, the Atman inside, how they are two separate entities. He just learns these things from watching the folk art form of Kudiyattam. And it is so pertinent because even today, Kerala is the place where Sanskrit theatre is so alive, and it is Kudiyattam. And that Sanskrit theatre, when you show the Nachiketa episode in Kudiyattam, it sounds so natural because you see such things in Kerala even today, that such Sanskrit theatre is so alive there. So all these elements, local cultural elements, wherever the character of Shankara travels throughout the regional cultures of India, the multicultural aspect of India is projected. And Ujjwalji, can you throw some light on how the Sanskrit of the mantras and the Sanskrit of speaking by the characters, how they get connected in the movie, and how do you appreciate the dialogue writer in coining the Sanskrit sentences? Are they too complicated or very small sentences, very much understandable to the common audience? Was the Sanskrit making the movie hard or simple to be followed by the common audience?
Yes, so actually the Sanskrit is very simple but idiomatic. That's what I should say. So while it is very much like the Sanskrit we can expect that would have been spoken at that time, it is also simple and easy to follow. And also while in some places the mantra is separated from the normal dialogue in a way such that it is not as audible and not meant to be understood in that way. When we hear a far away chant in in some valley, we can see in some scenes of the movie. But in many places, for example, the episode when Shankara sees the crow and the pigeon beneath the tree, while the pigeon was not eating and the crows were eating, and then he recalls the shloka from Rigveda, Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasvajate Tayoranya Pippalam Swadvatti Anashtan Nanyo Abhichakashiti. That the two birds who are together and friends, and they are seated beneath the tree, and one of them is eating and the other is not. So this is the personification of Atma and the Aham that is the body that we nourish. So in this one, we can see that this is meant to be understood by the audience of the movie, and not just presented for listening as an archaic mantra. And also, I would also like to one thing I want to uh, tell about discuss about is that the personification of the Mrityu and Prajnana Sharma. This thing is very characteristic of G.V. Iyer, and in his later film also Bhagavad Gita, he exploits this theme to the full extent, where he personifies the mental states.
Yes. Yeah, that's
And we can this is has
yeah. Uh, you're you're muted, Ujjwal ji. You're
okay,
for
sir.
some
So
reason you were muted a few minutes back. Also, can you go back to those points? We were not able to hear you.
okay, so the main things that I wanted to state are that the language is idiomatic but simple and easy to follow, and also that the mantras are not so separated from the narrative, and they are meant to be fully understood by the audience and not just like to be chanted without understanding. So in that context, I brought about the episode of the Suparna, the crow and the pigeon.
Yeah. All those points were heard. Only the last few points about the allegorical, the personification characters, and how it is characteristic of G.V. Iyer to make it, and in Bhagavad Gita, there some points were asked.
Yeah, that's what I want to say, that he has used that personification in Bhagavad Gita also, and in later films also. For example, Punyakoti also uses some of these concepts and personifies some of the characters there. And also about about, I would say that that in this film the death is also Mrityu is one of the main themes, and the Mrityu accompanies Shankara on his journey along with Prajnana, and also he is also very playful about at many instances. So, for example, when they reach the house of Mandana Mishra, Mrityu tries to enter first, and then Shankara stops him, saying, "Ayi Mrityu, yadi tvam evam tam pratham pashyasi, ko me bhashyasya vartikam rachayatu." So, if you will enter him and enter and see him first, then who will write my the bhashya, the commentary on my bhashya? So, this way we can see that the personification has been intertwined with playful use of the language also. So, over to you, sir.
Yeah, excellent. That really from the mantra and the spoken Sanskrit relationship. I remember the episode where the old friend of Shankara, Vishnu, meets him at the river, and when they start their journey, then Vishnu says, "I would also accompany you." Vishnu uses the mantra line "Sahaviryam Karavavahai" as just a sentence, as just a spoken sentence.
Yes.
He just says, Saha Viryam Karavavahai, let us go together and perform our might. So the mantra becomes just part of it. And everywhere, wherever mantras are uttered by the character, they become part of the spoken Sanskrit. And at places, mantras become the BGM. They give the BGM. They give the mood of Shantarasa for the movie. That ecstasy of mantra recitation is created. At places, the mantrocharana of some certain repeated syllables of the mantra of the tantric style, it is also narrated repeatedly to give, and the volume is maintained in such a way that gradually it is amplified and brought down, and the mood is created. The mood of ecstasy is created through that. And talking of these characters, the word personification, probably it comes from English. And we have a comparable term from Dvanyaloka, Chetanani Achetanavat Chetanani Chetanavat. So there we can probably use words like Chetanikarana. And probably, see, for example, this technique is not typical just of GV Iyer. We have it in Shakuntalam. The characters Anasuya and Priyambada are also like that. Anasuya and Priyambada are the qualities of Shakuntala, and qualities of Shakuntala are made into two characters. There is an English word for this, allegorical characters. These characters are allegorical. And we have allegorical plays in Sanskrit like Prabodha Chandrodaya, Sankalpa Suryodaya, where qualities, abstract qualities are made into characters. So that making qualities into characters is an age-old Sanskrit tradition that has been borrowed by G.V. Iyer into this movie. Like Anasuya and Priyambada of Shakuntala, you have Prajnanam and Mrityu here. And the way Mrityu is introduced, for example, it is Shankara's father who tells, make friends with him. And then he appears. What is interesting is that Shankara's mother also is able to see these characters. She is able to interact with them. Otherwise, usually such characters are just visible to a character like Shankara and not visible to others. But it
and
is
the age
Shankara's
also.
mother. Yeah, she is also able to see Prajnanam and Mrityu. And they appear only at right times, right moments. When Shankara, actually, there is an imagination in the people who watch the biography of Shankara that probably he lived just for 32 years. Why? Probably death was always with him. Death was haunting him. He was suffering from age problems or life problems. So this idea that death was always haunting him and it captured him at some very early age than in the case of others, that is made into this allegorical character of Murthy who always following him. And this fearlessness, if you are a sadhaka, if you are an adhyatmika sadhaka, you are not afraid of death. You make just friends with him. And that idea that a real siddha always makes friends with death and is not afraid of it, he is just playful with it, is brought in here. And the idea that prajnanam is also always, that wisdom was always with him. And for him, both are equal. His intellectual capacity and his readiness to die were always parallel with him. His spirituality and his intellectuality were always traveling with him. All this is very well brought in by the narration style in the movie, wonderfully. Yeah, that's a very good point, Ujjwalji, that you brought in. Danji, the filmmaking in a very contemporary style, unlike the commercial feature film style of Bollywood, but it was also a successful movie. Commercially also, it was not a failure. How do you think was that achieved, that combination of commercial success and a contemporary style of filmmaking was achieved by G.V. Iyer?
That is a great question, and the answer is pretty simple, actually. And I think the answer evades the truth. Like they say, the truth is so simple that it's in front of you. People there don't recognize it, right? So it's like that. Compelling filmmaking always is successful. If a film is compelling means it will grab the attention of the person who is watching it. It is going to be successful, right? Because human beings, the audience is not like, for example, if commercial films are making a lot of money and the alternate films are not, it's not because the commercial films are any worse than a good film. There is something in the commercial films that the audience wants, right? So that's something compelling about it that the audience wants. That's why they go and watch it. Similarly, I think this film is compelling because it doesn't delve into aspects of Shankara, like, for example, that are not easy for a common person to recognize, right? So if you watch the film moves at a fairly fast pitch. I mean, it moves rapidly. The story moves rapidly. He doesn't delve on anything particular. It doesn't hang on to something and spend too much time on a certain incident. The story keeps moving fast. So I think the reason it was successful is because it's a compelling film. It's made in a compelling way. Any film, you can, depending on the filmmaker, it could be made into a boring film, even if the subject is a great subject. It depends on the filmmaker, right? So like that, like Shankara, which is, I just wanted to mention that the first song in the movie is set to Shankara because it is Shankara who's the protagonist in the movie, right? So I think that's a short answer is it's a compelling film. It has lots of aspects to it which are very, very watchable, very, very watchable. One example is the nativity. Second example is the fact that it moves fairly fast. The movie is not slow. It's not meandering. It's moving at a fairly, which is very important for a good film, for a film to be compelling to watch. And the third thing I think is the fact that it does in a very simple way, like Ujjwal ji has mentioned, the Sanskrit is easy to understand. Even though one may not know the language, I think the message comes through, and it comes through in a very profound manner, and it gives something for the viewer to take away. So there's value that the audience member would find from a movie like this. So I think for multiple reasons, all these reasons, I think that I feel those probably were the reasons why it was very successful. But I wanted to just add something that when you were talking about Mrityu and personification of. If you remember, there's a scene, the Chandala scene, where Shankara says, "Move away," and I don't know if it's Mrityu or Prajnana who goes away from Shankara and stands behind the Chandala and is looking from there, saying something like, "Hey, what you're trying to do and ask this man to move away is not right. I'm not with you." It's something like that, right? So I thought that was a very powerful scene. The fact that death is not in favor of a certain act of Shankara. It's a very powerful scene, and I don't think G.V. Iyer pulled back from those kinds of messages also, right? So I think all these reasons would contribute to making a film very watchable, and that's probably why it was successful.
Yeah, those are excellent points, Danji. Ujjwalji, you were mentioning some sociological aspects in the movie with regard to egalitarian approach or inclusive, sociologically inclusive approaches in the movie and all that. Can you just speak about that?
Yes, so from the beginning onwards, we can see that there are many cases where we see the upliftment of the deprived people. So, for example, in the beginning, there was this Brahman lady who was poor, and she said that she did not hoard because it was a papa. And then there was the other Brahman man who was hoarding and then giving away as a dana. And then Shankara disagreed to take dana from him, saying that what he had hoarded is just a papa. And this then we see the story of Satyakama Jabala, which is the first time after Shankara explains the concept of Advaita to his to the fellow disciples of Govind Bhagavad Pada. And then also we see the event when the illiterate boy who was later named Totaka, he composed a fine verse in the temple of Kashi. And then of course the Chandala episode, and then again the Hastamalaka episode, where the boy who was thought to be dumb and insane from childhood turned out to be a knower of the Advaita. And also the episode of Raikva, who imparts knowledge to the daughter of the king Janashruti, who was very proud of himself and for his wealth and the donations that the charity that he used to do. So these are so many things that G.V. Iyer has incorporated in the movie to give that message of equality.
Yeah, excellent. So he does not miss any of the aspects of impact of Shankara, not just the spiritual import of Advaita Vedanta, sociological implications, national integration implications, national implications, the cultural implications. Everything he keeps in mind and integrates them into the movie in such a very subtle way into the narration. Without actually, as Danji was saying, losing the compelling nature of the movie at every step. He interweaves all these things into the narration so well that all the impact of Shankara and his Advaita are brought in. Interesting thing is regarding Shantarasa that I was talking about, though Shantarasa is mentioned in Bharata's Natya Shastra itself, the one who brought it into such an impacting discussion was Abhinavagupta. He is the one who makes it so important. And through the discussion of Abhinavagupta, what happens is Shantarasa becomes a rasa of Advaita Vedanta, basically. Though we can talk of it as a general spiritual rasa, but because Abhinavagupta himself was an Advaiti, it becomes an Advaitic experience. Later, when Bhakti Rasa was brought in by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas like Rupa Goswami in Ujjwal Nilamani and Haribhakta Rasamrita Sindhu, they also look at Shantarasa as an Advaitic concept. So, a first Sanskrit movie, full movie that was made, becoming a Shantarasa movie, and that too an Advaita movie. Movie with the theme of an Advaita Guru is so interesting coincidence that G.V. Iyer chose this theme for an Advaitic idea in Shantarasa, and how he brings in Advaita Vedanta is not so, for example, the Mahavakyas, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, all those cliches he avoids. He brings in Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma kind of things and makes some ascetics question Shankara, saying, how is this possible? Kathamidam Satyam. And they go haunt him up to the end. And that is where the Satyakama Jabali incident is narrated by Shankara. And that interweaving of the sociological aspect of Satyakama Jabali and the Brahman aspect from the Chandogya Upanishad And that was questioned by the ascetic disciples and interweaving it with the other Upanishad. All that very cleverly he manages and brings the Advaita Vedantic ideas so cleverly. Without making them look like some artificial Mahavakya sloganeering, we can say. There is no sloganeering of Mahavakyas. It's very naturally conveyed through a convincing logical argument of narration. And also the Mimamsa Advaita Vedanta connection is so well brought in through that Kumarila Bhatta incident, the Trunadaha incident, the gas burning incident, where you are able to see the greatness on the part of Vedic tradition, that you are so sincere and honest, and you are open-minded. The Mimamsa Guru is open-minded to receive the Uttara Mimamsa Guru Shankara, and he says, "Oh, excellent, Badham," his bhashya, and says, "Now go and meet my disciple Mandana Mishra. He is sama to me. He is actually equal to me," and all that. So he doesn't even miss those shastric connections between Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, Mimamsa and Vedanta, and how he conveys Advaita Vedanta in a very subtle way. All these are also very interesting aspects. Danji, from the technical points of view of cinematography and BGM and no dance at all, for example, unlike many Indian movies, and no big fight scenes or any such thing. So you were using the word alternate film technique. So these aspects of film technique, do you think the technology used in the movie was just advanced, more advanced than 1983, or we have a better technology today than 1983? How do you rate those?
Yeah. I mean, having looked at filmmaking from very close quarters, if you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all the movies that you see nowadays of Iron Man and everything, obviously, the technology is the contribution of technology in the end product is 70-80%. Right? If you take Adi Shankara in 1983, and he made it with very limited resources. It was not as if he had a ton of producers that had willing to give him a lot of money. He had very limited resources and he still made the film. So you will see throughout that the technology is very simple. It's a linear story style of telling the story. It's a very linear style. The camera work doesn't confuse. It's fairly simple, straightforward, unperturbed filmmaking, the style. The music is very simple. Everything, all components of the film are very well balanced. And I think that was an art that filmmakers have lost. Now, I don't think there's even one filmmaker who can do that. I don't think that skill is gone. Right? Today there are too many resources, and there's an inability to balance resources to make sure the end product actually works and works well. Right? There is that lack of skill to some extent today. But this film, I mean, Adi Shankara, I think it's a great example. It should be in film school. People should be taught how to make a film. And yes, this film should be an example, a case study. Unfortunately, I've heard that the film, the best copy that's available today is not the original. The original is lost, and they have a copy of some sort available with somebody, and even that copy was not kept safe properly, and therefore it has problems. And I think I'm going to definitely, one of the things that we should do at Indic Academy is try and see if we can, find that film and reprocess it to improve the quality of the film and then archive it in a safe way.
It's a great idea. Great idea. Yeah. Definitely.
I think something we can pursue, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, Ujjwal ji, you were working with Sanskrit dubbing for Harry Potter, and you were involved in Punyakoti animation also. So, from your experience of times, what do you see in this movie that inspires you to do in your future filmmaking attempts?
And that's what I was just going to ask also, Danji, about the aspect of the technology. So this film is, I think, from what I can perceive as I'm not an expert in filmmaking, so I can see that none of the scenes seems to be shot in a studio. While at that time, most of the films used studio lighting, etc. And in this film, we don't see any kind of artificial lighting. And also in the other film of GVA, Bhagavad Gita, I noticed the same thing, that the lighting is mostly natural. So even in the indoor setting, the lighting that they use is from the oil lamps, which is rather than the overhead lightings that we see in most of the films made at that time. So I wanted to ask Sri Danji if he can shed some light on this aspect.
Yeah, in fact, there are, lighting is really not a director's decision. It's more a cinematographer decision, right? The person who's the cinematographer, who's shooting the film, that person decides what the lighting should be. Yes, there is a overarching decision from the film director saying that this is the kind of mood I'm trying to portray. Therefore, there is a saying, there is some role for the director, but a lot of the decision making about how the film looks or what light was used is really the cinematographer's decision. And at that time, there was a school of cinematographers. I can't remember his name. He was a Bengali gentleman who made some films by Bapu. Gorantha Deepam, was shot by this Bengali cinematographer. And Gorantha Deepam is a Telugu film. If you watch the film, you'll see it's entirely natural light.
Gautam Ghosh?
Gautam Ghosh, or maybe Gautam Ghosh. I'm just not able to recollect the name right now. So, but you're right. And that's what makes that film really appealing, because natural light has that quality of that balance. It creates a balanced lighting. But I'm sure, they must have taken a lot of pain in terms of finding the right time of the day to shoot a certain scene. Because obviously natural light is very, very difficult to control because there are clouds and there's all kinds of things happening. Artificial light is more easier to control. So, the short answer is, I think the decision is mostly a cinematographer decision in terms of how the lighting would be. And I think in this film, they really, like you pointed out correctly, there are no sets. And looks like the entire film was made in a natural surrounding, which gives it that authenticity.
Thank you very much, both of you, Ujjwal ji and Danji ji. It was an excellent conversation among three of us. We, I think, covered almost all the important aspects of the great historic movie by G.V. Iyer ji. Actually, the movie is not just a movie example, it's an example of how to bring the traditional knowledge systems into the contemporary audience, how to communicate to the contemporary audience in a receivable and compelling way. So there is so much for all the people who are interested in protecting, preserving, and promoting. That's what Indic Academy uses, these three words, for the protection and preservation and promotion of traditional knowledge systems in a contemporary situation. For all of them, this movie is an inspiration, particularly for the people passionate about Advaita Vedanta and its communication to the contemporary audience. It's a great inspiration. It's a great tribute to Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, for whom we are performing this festival, 1 month long festival. So, Shankara Bhagavad Padebhyo Namo Namaha. Manukasha.
Namo Namah. Dhanyavad.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for bringing so much insights into this wonderful movie. I think we all should again watch it after listening to you all. Yeah, and we have some questions. Can we take some questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read them out. A very interesting movie which I enjoyed. I would like to know about the research methodology behind the movie. What were the sources, etc., consulted? How were the historical conflicts resolved? For example, identity of Sureshwara and Mandana.
More Nagaraj Karu question. I would say.
Okay, so unless the whole filmmaking process was documented by the unit, we cannot actually authentically say what was the research that went into the whole movie making, filmmaking. But legendarily, we hear that Kanchi Paramacharya Swami Chandrasekharendra Saraswati was helping G.V. Iyer in understanding the research aspects. And there were people like Benanja Govindacharya, for example. Though he was a Madhva, he was also involved in making this film. And there were many other Sanskrit scholars who were involved in researching. And G.V. Iyer himself also seems to have got involved in these things. And for example, the identity of Mandana Mishra and Sureshwaracharya kind of things, he very cleverly leaves them ambiguous. He doesn't actually make an authentic statement about any of such controversial historical questions inside the movie. That's a clever decision by a contemporary filmmaker not to unnecessarily get into controversial historical issues.
Yeah, thank you. And we have another question. Don't you think there could be improvisation in terms of costume, especially the way Sri Shankara's mother is dressed? Danji,
I
will
can take that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that. So that's where we really need to think about why that question is coming up, right? The question is coming up because today we are overlaying today's moral sensitivities on a time which is centuries ago. And this is the problem that happens in many areas. Like the whole Ramayana discourse. I took a course on Ramayana at Harvard University, and see, they're only interested in why did Rama send away Sita, right? So when you overlay today's moral expectations on something that has happened centuries ago, there's no answer to that.
It is an
That's all I
answer.
can say. Go ahead, Nagaraj.
The answer is this. Vyasa shows you a polyandrous character, Draupadi, and asks you to be harmonious with such situation. We have polyandrous communities all over India, some tribal communities. When you go there, you should not impose your moral judgments on that kind of community. You learn it from Vyasa, and G.V. Iyer also is teaching you the same. I started my cultural anthropological research fieldwork way back in late 80s in Kerala. And even in those days, this kind of costume was prevalent. This shift from the traditional Kerala costume, women costume, to the contemporary costume is not still complete in Kerala. In remote corners of Kerala, the traditional costume is still prevalent. And it is gradually happening. The shift is gradually happening. So if you really want to understand Bharat, please travel from one corner of Bharat to the other. And then while traveling, be empathetic to the cultures that you are observing, and then understand the pluralist Bharat in its true perspective. Then you will overcome all these kinds of questions in your mind.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll take two quick questions and we'll conclude. The next question is, the musical and vocal rendering are also magnificent. What styles have been used?
What styles?
Yes, what styles have been used is the question.
So I mean, Nagaraj Garu, I'm sure he can speak. I'll just quickly say one thing and then I'll pass it back to Nagaraj Garu and Ujjwal Garu. They'll probably be able to talk about it a little bit better. So I think Mangalampalli Balamurali Krishna was the person who composed the music and also sang most of the songs in the movie. And B.V. Karant was the background music score, was by him. So both of them are accomplished masters, right? I mean, that's a data point that I just wanted to provide. That I don't have anything specific that I can say about it because I don't have expertise in that space. But the fact that such masters, titans, were involved definitely is going to result in great quality music.
If the question is about Carnatic or Hindustani, actually, we in Balamurali Krishna Garu have a personality who has surpassed all these styles. He has reached the understanding of music in a global way, in a universal way, and that has impacted the music in this movie. It is not typically Carnatic, not typically Hindustani. There is a global approach to music in this movie. That is what makes it globally, musically also compelling. Ujjwal ji, you have anything to say?
I just want to comment on the sound aspect of the movie. That when I first watched this movie, then the line that's repeated many times, the Akashat Patitam Toyam Sagaram Prati Gacchati. This line echoed in my ears for a few days after watching the movie. So that is the I think very important line. Also, it is the concerned with the Advaita. So
yeah, okay.
So
I think that's a very good point, because the fact, the power of the sound, the sound, the words, the sound, the power of that sound itself is so powerful that one cannot be not impacted by it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Nagaraj.
No, you wanted to say something?
No. Please.
Yeah, we will take final question. Throughout the movie, Shankara is seen having two friends, Death and Wisdom. Are they symbolic and have they been mentioned in the Digvijayas?
We have been discussing that throughout the panel, friends. The concepts of Mrityu and Prajnanam are definitely Vedic. Definitely they have been discussed in Upanishads. Actually, the entire concept of moksha, right from the Rigveda mantras, is all about overcoming death only. Amritatva is the idea. So, and the whole logic goes from there. And Upanishads say, Vidiyadvai bhayam bhavati. So there should not be any fear because there is no second. You are everything. When you are everything, there is nothing to be afraid of. Why should there be fear? This fearlessness from death is what is there from Rigveda mantras through Upanishads, through all the Vedic literature, and that is very cleverly communicated through the symbolism of the allegorical character of Mrityu in the movie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nagaraj. And that ends our question and answer session. And from the entire team of Advaita Academy, I thank Nagaraj, Danji, who has joined, and also Ujjwal, who spoke about the movie and gave us so many insights through it. And with this, viewers, we conclude yet another session of Global Festival of Oneness. Thank you so much. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Namaskar.
In the evening, we have the valedictory function of Global Festival of Oneness. Shri Harikiran Vadlamani will be delivering the opening remarks, and we have a special video address by Mahamahopadhyaya Shri Mani Dravida Shastrigal. The valedictory address will be delivered by Swami Atma Priyananda Ji Maharaj. There is a special vocal performance on Shankara's Kritis and Stotras by Dr. P.N. Prabhavati Ji. And Chief Curator of Advaita Academy, Shri Nitin Sridhar, will be delivering the vote of thanks. Please tune into the session. Indica Courses, in collaboration with Advaita Academy, brings to you a structured course to empower you with the knowledge of moksha. It is taught by Shri Kathirasan K. Do register for this elevating experience, and there are only limited seats available. There is an important announcement for sadhakas and seekers. Indica Renaissance Fund is pleased to announce a scheme of 50% of the scholarship fees payable for 6 selected sadhakas. Sadhakas and seekers are encouraged to make use of this wonderful opportunity. With this, we conclude. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.